there are two other stakeholders in this that I didn't mention. And I want to say stakeholders, but they're at least, I mentioned residential, right? Property owners, I mentioned the developers. There's also the city lights, which I didn't mention here, and then there's also the Delmarva street lights. So let me give you a quick update on the city lights. So as all of us know, they replaced the lights in the middle of Rehoboth Avenue over the course of the past year. They are not dark sky friendly or dark sky compliant. They were purchased a number of years ago, so this is what they bought. One of the benefits to those lights is that they are dimmable. So we have had at least one instance that I'm aware of where a resident along Rehoboth Avenue was having issues with the brightness in their house or in their resident. The city manager, along with the Department of Public Works, were able to work with that resident to dim that light to get it to a level that was not intrusive to them. So that's the first thing I want to point out. In my conversations with the city manager, they're committed as they move forward this year and next year to replace the boardwalk lights as well as replace the street lamps on Rehoboth Avenue. Those are both scheduled to be replaced these next couple of years. This is not something that they're proposing as it relates to committee. It was already in the capital plan. Everything's going to be dimmable, right? So they're going to have the ability to dim the lights. Second is they're committed to at least dark sky friendly. And to that extent, what the city manager and the Department of Director of Public Works are in the process of doing is they're in the process of acquiring two models of dark sky friendly lamps that they're going to go ahead and install on the boardwalk. Not just for us, but for all of the residents to go down and take a look at. So it's two models. They're buying, my understanding is they're getting 4 in total, 2 of each model. I'm not exactly sure where they're putting them on the boardwalk. They were hoping to get them up in the next month or so. Once they're up, we can go down and take a look at them, okay? And we can, not just us, but everyone kind of can provide their feedback on what they're thinking. The plan is to do the same thing on Rehoboth Avenue. One of the, and again, I don't want to say this is a question, but one of the considerations they've brought up is, okay, we've already purchased this teardrop style of lighting, and again, that might not be the right term, but I hope everyone's understanding the center of Rehoboth Avenue, which is not dark sky friendly or dark sky compliant. How do we feel about if we have a different, the thinking is, okay, we have this teardrop in the middle, we have a teardrop on the street lamps. What's the feedback going to be or the feeling of the community if they go with something that's slightly different but is dark sky friendly? Again, they're going to be dimmable. We're not at that point yet, but I think it's something that, we're probably going to want to have a conversation about at some point in time because they're definitely with these lights. They want to get the community feedback on what they're going to install. Again, everything's going to be dimmable. That works well, not just for, the residents and the people who are in those areas. It works great for public safety because it gives them the ability to turn the lights up. If, when I say public safety, the police department, it gives them the ability to turn the lights up as they need to, and then we can turn them down. Even, as we go through the night, there's probably the opportunity to dim these down further and further. So I wanted to talk about the city street lights. So the city's committed to a minimum of dark sky friendly going forward. As far as Delmarva street lamps, the city met with Delmarva. They're committed to only installing dark sky compliant lighting going forward. One of the things that is of consideration here is it's not just about the light. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. It's making sure that it's installed correctly.
Right.
So we do have in this ordinance, okay, they're going to commit to the dark sky, but they're also going to commit to installing it correctly. One of the things that they've been doing recently is installing something, then come spraying it with, black paint or some off-color paint to dim it. So we want to get them away from that. We want them to actually install stuff that's dark sky compliant, get it installed correctly. So that'll be in the ordinance as well, so we can ultimately hold them to what they're committing to do. I'm not questioning their commitment. My concern is more, and I agree with, this has been raised by a few people, making sure that they install it correctly, right? So those were two of the other areas. So it was, in my mind, it was like we've got the residential area, which consists of the property owners going to Lowe's and Home Depot, buying lights, and putting them up. It's the developer, so this would be one of my initial areas of focus is getting information to building and licensing. So even before this ordinance is enacted, they understand that this is what we're looking for as a community. So when they go to work with their customers, they go to design the houses, they're purchasing shielded lighting, they're going to install it correctly. There's the city lights, which we've talked about. Taylor's committed to that. And then we've talked about Delmarva. And then there are some things in here around, the business area as well. Questions?
Yeah, just a comment on that. As we strategize for the success of this ordinance, let's think about how to communicate with the Chamber of Commerce and with Main Street, because they have very direct communication with a large number, with almost all of the businesses, and with a large number of other folks as well on their committees. There's also several very large HOAs in the city, and they're putting out newsletters on a regular basis. And I think the sooner they start referencing this as part of our education and communication plan, the better off we will be here in terms of success in the future. It's the old thing. We don't want any surprises. No one wants a surprise and be told, oh, you're violating a new ordinance. Rather let's pave the way so that people say, oh, I've heard about that. I understand that. And now I've got a year to deal with it.
Yeah. Thank you. Other comments, other questions? Okay, if it's okay, what I'm going to do, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over there. I'm going to go to the lectern. I'm going to bring the ordinance up as written. I did get some feedback over the last day or so. I did not incorporate that in here, so I'd ask as we go through this, let's go through it. Comments, questions, let's try and work through the whole document, finalize it, and then we can move it forward. Once we do that, I want to come back and I want to talk about the education part of it. Dick brought up some good points about Main Street and the chamber, so I'd like to at least formulate a plan to create this educational material. Okay. Before I go and start talking about the ordinance, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for public comment, I just wanted to offer the opportunity for public comment, and if we can just kind of focus on community lighting at this point. Yes. State your name.
Jan Conacy, 42 Oak Avenue. You refer to the city, you're using two, oh, sorry, Ann. Why is it not on? Okay, you're using two phrases, dark sky compliant and dark sky friendly. Are you using them interchangeably, or do you mean two different things?
When I say it, I believe them to be two different things.
Okay, and that concerns me. It concerns me because one of the big things as a tourist of town, and to me, one of the big selling points for Main Street and for the business community, and actually from the people who live at the Hen Open and at Star of the Sea, who I've had conversations with, they're looking at dark sky compliant because one guy is an amateur astronomer. It's very sellable. We would be the only community on the eastern coast that would be dark sky compliant. So dark sky friendly, I know, is what Tedder ended up doing in Nevada. And that is not the same. And that's not what we came to you with. We came asking for a dark sky compliant. And you said Delmarva Power agreed to dark sky compliant. Why wouldn't the city be doing the same thing? I'm really upset about this, as you can tell. I think we've worked really hard to be a dark sky city that would be included in all of the dark sky advertisings, all of their publicity, all of their communications. And if we're not going to do that, I'd like to know up front. Thank you.
Collins?
Collins Roth, live 501 South Boardwalk. Stole my thunder, effectively. I find it very strange that the proposal is that residents are required to be dark sky compliant. that Delmarva Power has said it will be dark sky compliant. The city is giving itself an out to only be friendly. And as somebody who lives with the boardwalk lights shining in to my bedroom every day, I'm really disappointed to hear that. It kind of destroys the whole point of this thing, I think. So I think the city should hold itself to a standard at which it can, with its hand over its heart, say to everybody else, we're doing the same thing that everybody else is we're requiring our citizens, our businesses, and Delmarva Power has agreed to. So, thanks.
Oh, hold on, Jen. We hit. Nah, why don't you comment and then Jam?
Hi, my name's Patty Brown. I live on Staten Grove Street in Rehoboth.
I'm sorry, could you spell your last name? I apologize.
Brown, B-R-O-W-N.
Okay, great. And where do you live?
I live on the corner of Staten Grove Street where all the trees are.
Okay.
When
Okay,
you
go ahead.
mean, when you're saying nighttime skies, is that why that light is turned off on Grove Street there?
I don't know. Does anyone know the answer to that?
It's on all summer long, but towards the end of the summer, it's turned off. Unless you have something going on in town, then they turn it back on.
And where's this light
On Grove Street.
specifically? Where on Grove?
Well, like I said, I'm on the corner of State and Grove. I'm the house, the rancher that's on the corner. And I have all the trees in my yard, okay? It's fine, because I turned my light on, okay?
Mhm.
But I just wanted to know if that was the reason why that light is off.
Don't know, but we can follow up with you.
Another thing, I mean, I understand you want the night skies, because it's pretty with watching the stars. I've had my windows open all the time, looking out the window. But you also got your wildlife. You've got the foxes, the coyotes that are coming through my yard in the middle of the day. I got the deer coming down there. I saw an eagle up on one of the trees one morning, and they're looking for the rabbits. They're looking to hunt. Isn't that kind of dangerous? Plus, you got the bar down the street on Rehoboth Avenue, and they're walking down there. I've had people falling on my grass and everything else because they're drunk. It's dark when you have those lights off. Isn't that dangerous?
The city, are you talking about the city light?
No, I'm talking about, yeah, I'm talking about the city light with that light being off.
Mhm.
And then you got the bar down on Rehoboth Avenue there. You got the VFW over here, and they're parking, you know, they're looking for parking places, so they're gonna park around my house. And it's gonna be dark. That's dangerous.
Patty, which light specifically are you referring to? Is
Okay.
it on your property or is it down towards Sixth?
It's on Grove Street,
Yeah,
okay? And that's part of my property there. I guess it's part of my property there, but they have it on during the summer.
so it's the
It's a
light on the
street
corner?
light?
Not the light on the corner.
Okay,
Not
so
on
going
State Road,
toward,
on
going
Grove
towards
Street.
Sixth.
Yeah, that light there. But like I said, you got the bars there, you got the VFW there. They're walking down to try to find a parking place. You got the foxes running loose, you got the coyotes running loose, you got the deer running loose down that road. And it's dangerous. I mean, you know, like I said, I saw an eagle one day. Maybe because that's you turning
I-
the lights and they
I'm-
think they're in the forest. I don't
I'm
know.
very encouraged that you saw an eagle.
Right,
I mean, that's what we need to keep.
So what we can do is we can look into that light and why
I
that
mean, don't
light
get
is
me wrong,
off.
I am an animal lover. I've got cats. I've started befriending with the dogs in the neighborhood and everything else.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, like I said, my light covers my whole yard.
Yep.
And when I hear noises at night, that light goes on,
Okay,
okay?
we'll look into that.
Thank you.
Jan?
Jan Conacy, 42 Oak. I just wanted to add that in 2010, when this was first in the CDP, it was dark sky compliant. In 2020 or 21, when we came to the Environmental Committee and the Boardwalk Committee and the City Commission, it was dark sky compliant. You know, as I say, when I met with the city manager, he said, well, you know, in Nevada, they did it dark sky friendly. That's not the same. And I think that we need to get this right up front. What's it going to be? Thank you. And especially since Delmarva's agreed to dark sky compliance.
So I want to respond to both your comment and Colin's comment. In terms of dark sky compliant, the city spent has already spent a lot of money this past year, right, on the lights in the middle of Rehoboth Avenue. So I don't think it's, reasonable at this point to ask the city to go back and spend another few $100,000s to make that, make that dark sky compliant, right? It's probably just not going to happen. And I want to move forward, and I want to address to the furthest possible extent we can the community lighting issues that we have. The reason why I brought up with a lot of emphasis the 2 models of dark sky friendly lights that the city manager is acquiring and going to put on the boardwalk, right? And there's going to be 4 in total. It's 2 models, is because I want people to go out and take a look at them, right? If they're not adequate, right, then we're going to go back to the city manager and ask him to get something that's adequate. Okay, and I shouldn't use the term adequate, right? We get into, is it dark sky friendly? Is it dark sky compliant? Is it going to do the job that we need to do? And we don't know the answer to that yet, right? Let's allow the city manager the opportunity to acquire these 2 models as he is already in the process of doing, install them on the boardwalk, and then we can all go take a look at them and, come up with an opinion. We'll do it individually, but also, as a community, are these acceptable or not? I fully appreciate, Collins is not the only one to make that comment. We have a lot of residents that have been battling the lights on the boardwalk for decades, right? I mean, it's no different than what people experience in the residential community where you have light trespass. This happens to is also light trespass, but it's the lights on the boardwalk. So for me, at a minimum, we've got to address that light trespass for the people that live on the boardwalk. I can't, at this point right now, I can't get, I guess for the lack of a better term, wrapped up whether it's dark sky friendly or dark sky compliant. Is it going to do what we need it to do? Yes or no? That's really the question that I'm looking to answer, and I'm looking for the people in the community to answer. So, and we won't know that until they're up.
Can you tell us what the difference is?
What does dark sky friendly mean? What does the city manager mean when he says
so-
dark sky
On a real
friendly?
practical level, what does this mean?
Yeah, so you're asking me to answer a question. I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know the answer to that question. But what I do know, right, as a sitting commissioner is that this is the direction that he's recommending going. I need to give him the opportunity to go in this direction.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And once he goes in this direction and he installs these lights, we can all kind of individually and collectively decide, do these make sense or not, right? And it's probably just not going to be in this committee, right? I mean, there are going to be residents that will probably show up at the Board of Commissioners and give their opinions. So again,
Yeah.
I need to give them the opportunity, and it's not just me, right, because I'm only one commissioner, right? All of us as commissioners need to give him the opportunity to pursue these models of lights that he's installing. He's told us and again, I think it's important, he's been very upfront with us, and again, I'm not defending him, but he's been upfront with us. They're not dark sky compliant, they're dark sky friendly. So we know what we're getting. Let's see what gets installed.
Okay.
But again, this is great feedback. Okay, and my intention up here is not to be dismissive of this. My intention is, as I said, this is what he would like to do. This is the step he'd like to take. I think I know as a commissioner, I need to give him that opportunity to take this step. So I'm going to hold any more public comments. We're going to go talk about the ordinance, and afterwards we'll talk about it again. Yes, Mary?
I guess I was under the impression that the Dark Sky program was a whole set of initiatives and things that are not just about one type of lighting, but really a broader program that I'm hearing from the community, at least some members of the community feel would really enhance Rehoboth's cachet and ability to attract people who are very interested in that as part of their experience here in Rehoboth. And I assume many homeowners and businesses would also be interested in that. So I would love to better understand, not right now, but as an action item, if we could delineate what does it mean to be dark sky friendly, and then what is the additional, I'll use the word burden or requirements, that would be needed to be dark sky compliant, because I'm sure there is some level of effort that is going to be different for those two categories. And I think it's worth it for us to look at what is the additional requirement. And I know this lighting is a big piece of it, but I guess I was under the impression that there are other components of this as well that may factor into it. So that's a recommendation for us for a future discussion.
Okay. Let's hold that until, I'd like to get through the ordinance, and then there's a couple other things I want to make sure we get to in this meeting. So what we'll do is, at our next meeting, we'll bring that back and understand it.
Thank you, Craig.
Could I ask one question? Why doesn't he put a dark sky compliant light and a dark sky friendly light next to each other?
Yeah, Craig, let me just comment on that. I think that's a great idea, because then, we would see on a real practical level, is there a difference? Does it make a difference for folks on the boardwalk, who have this concern, a legitimate concern? And then maybe it wouldn't make a difference on Rehoboth Avenue, but it may make a huge difference in people's lives on the boardwalk, not only those that live there, but then going back to the environment, the animals, mammals, and so on that are living in the Atlantic and on the beach.
Craig, could I make one comment?
Yes.
So I thought the issue with the city streetlights was more of a timing issue. I know when I sent my comments in on the first draft, I had questions about could we bring the timing forward and such, but I was always thinking in terms of, well, the city had, as Mrs. Conacy has pointed out, kind of bought wrong lights, if you will, but I thought it was about, well, we would use them, but as soon as any of the city lights need to be replaced, they would be replaced with dark sky compliant. So I was viewing the movement toward dark sky compliant, that might take a little longer with the city streetlights, but that was the goal.
Well, there's two things. There's city-owned streetlights and there's Delmarva Power-owned streetlights. And I think the city can more directly control, even though it's a huge, potential huge budget item, the city-owned streetlights. With the Delmarva Power-owned streetlights, I think it has to be part of the negotiation of the Delmarva Power electrical supply contract. Currently, 90% of the lights in Rehoboth, the orange glow lights, they are not dark sky compliant at all. And where I think that there's been problems with light trespass is when Delmarva Power has replaced those lights with a much brighter, cooler LED light that shines directly into neighbors' property. And I do think that whole thing has to be worked by the city. It's hard to legislate that, because if we were to legislate right now that Delmarva Power had to replace all of those high-pressure sodium vapor lights, I don't think people would be very happy at all. A lot of them would not like the replacement light. So, because it would be brighter, cooler, and, not as attractive. But I do think in the interim, one of the things that this ordinance does try to do is not delay the effective date for private property installed lights, the kind that are creating havoc when, your next door neighbor has a whole wall of security lights shined into your property. That can, I think, be easily addressed more quickly, and I hope that we, while it might seem like half a loaf, I would not want to sacrifice getting that half a loaf for the comfort and peace of our community neighbors.
So could I just say one more thing?
Yep.
Ed? So again, I thought the whole problem in setting the required time frame for this, for the streetlights, whether they're owned by Delmarva or us, that I'm just going to go back to what Mrs. Conacy said. I mean, the way that we have, I'll just say, power to ensure that Delmarva installs dark sky compliant lighting is to have our ordinance. This is kind of like a which comes first, chicken or the egg. So we need to have that in place. I think, I don't know if this is the solution, is we have that here. We have a time frame for, of course, we're not going to ask people, or we're not going to have like them come immediately in and change every street light, and the same with us, because we've got those lights already purchased. But that if the time frame was set, that would be, and that's where I thought we were going, that lines up with what we know when those lights get changed, so that when they get changed, when they need to be changed, they get changed to dark sky compliant.
Oh, yeah.
Are you referring to the city lights?
So I'm referring
You're
to
referring to
both.
Okay.
All, the section, I mean, that was the section I was most interested in, was the street lighting, that to make sure that this section 106 is robust, and that it will get us to where we want to go.
All right, so with head nods here, it sounds like a couple of things. And if I'll say a couple of things, and whatever I missed, let me know what I missed. So one is, it sounds like one thing we want to do is go back to the city manager, and he's probably watching this, and ask him to, in addition to dark sky friendly, can you install a dark sky compliant fixture on the boardwalk? So just kind of by show of shaking heads, yes or no?
Yes.
We want to do that. Okay, great, done. The second thing that I'm hearing is in the ordinance, and I'm kind of going back specific to what Francis was saying, in the ordinance, I'd like to do these separately if it's okay. So we'll talk about Delmarva, and then we'll talk about the street lights, right? Or maybe it's the same. Well, Delmarva's already committed to doing it. So really, this is the city. City commits, and this would really primarily be, well, it could be anywhere in the city, but we know a big part of it is probably in the middle of Rehoboth Avenue. As those lights are replaced, they're replaced with dark sky compliant lights. So we'd be looking for that as well. So again, kind of shake your heads here. Everyone is in support of that. Okay, those are two. What did I miss? Because we just talked about a bunch of stuff. We heard from the community. What did I miss?
Well, the one that I suggested about actually understanding the difference between dark sky friendly and dark sky compliant in terms of the overall program and the level of effort required to be compliant versus friendly.
Okay, so we're going to take that away. What we'll do is for the next meeting, again, just kind of show of heads here, the next meeting, we'll provide that information. I'm going to say we'll provide that information. I'm not exactly sure who's going to do that or how that's done. But by show of heads, we want to do, that's something that everyone's interested in doing, right? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, it's a pretty extensive certification program to be dark sky compliant. It can take towns several years to get to that certification.
Yeah. And again, maybe this is my naivety or even possible ignorance. With the lights down the middle of Rehoboth Avenue, which are not even dark sky friendly, do we even have the opportunity in the near term to become certified dark sky compliant, right? There's always going to be pushback on these compliance programs because somebody's got to go through the process of getting it done, and then somebody's got to go through the process of maintaining it. So that's always going to be a consideration. But again, maybe it's, like I said, it's just my naivety. I don't want to say I've been dismissive of it. I've been less focused on dark sky, becoming dark sky compliant certified as we sit here today because we've got those lights down the middle of Rehoboth Avenue, and I don't know if that prevents us from doing that. And then also, thank you, Kathleen, and her example of half a loaf of bread. You know, I'd like to, you know, again, you're gonna see me in some ways, not just with this. If we can get a lot of this accomplished in the near term, then I'm gonna do that. You know, I'm gonna push, I don't wanna say I'm gonna do that, but I'm gonna, you know, that's gonna be where my position is, so. But I think what's come out is, you know, some very good things today, so just give me a second, because I gotta take a couple of notes.
Okay.
So the first one was the dark sky. Okay, so if everyone's okay, I'm gonna do as I said, I'm gonna go up there.
Let's do it.
And we'll walk through this.
Maybe one last question about timeline. Do you have a good sense of when the city manager is planning to do these test lights on the boardwalk?
So my understanding was that the test lights would be within probably a month or a month and a half. Let's say end of February. I don't know for certain, okay? So, but we will report back, so.
Okay, well, obviously, the sooner the better, I think most of us
Absolutely.
would say. Yeah, you know, one of the ongoing frustrations, obviously, is that these things continue to show up on agendas, and then the same discussion gets repeated, and then it's not on agenda, and 2 or 3 months later, we have a similar discussion, and not much has happened. And so with your leadership, Craig, we look forward to it happening on a much more timely kind of basis than it has in the past.
And to that point, you know, it's always gonna need to be compromised, right?
Yes, of course.
And I use that term,
Yeah.
you know, unfortunately, very broadly, but part of being successful is progressing things. So,
Craig, I
yes,
just
Mary.
had a note that there's no video for today, that the video for people who are trying to watch online,
There
that
should be,
they're unable to see it. Oop, is that? It's not working? Okay.
okay.
Too bad.
And I'm ready whenever you're ready. Okay. All right, so this is the draft of the ordinance that was posted to the agenda. And if I just kind of take a step back here for a second, I should spend 30 seconds just explaining how we got to this draft. So at the last Environmental Advisory Committee meeting, there was a draft ordinance that was attached to the agenda. That was the basis of, or really the baseline of this document. At that last meeting, I asked all the committee members to provide feedback. I got feedback. I also got some feedback from community members. Based on that feedback, I redrafted this, okay? I then met with Kathleen, who has a lot of experience in drafting ordinances. I got some feedback from Jan, who did the Dark Skies presentation, and we basically took my initial draft. We then made some additional modifications on it, and really the modifications were around what needs to be in an ordinance from what I would say is a technical perspective, right? Not my layperson's terms. And then we cleaned it up so that it actually looked like an ordinance. We put, you know, subchapters and so on in here. My goal in doing this is really twofold. One is that for all of us as a committee, we know exactly, at the end of the day, when we move this ordinance on, we know exactly what it is we're telling the city manager as well as the Board of Commissioners what we are recommending, okay? Because the devil is always in the details. The second part of this is to the extent that we can pre-draft these ordinances, it is going to make it easier for city administration when they go through the process of looking at the ordinance. If they have to draft it from scratch, it's going to take much longer for them. If they have to review ours, it's going to be much shorter. And that kind of comes back to the devil's in the details. By giving them an ordinance, they know what we're looking for. If we say, hey, here's 10 things we want, they're going to draft it, and we may go back and forth 5 times. So that's how we got here today. So let's just go ahead and walk through it. I think there are some things in here that are definitely, we're going to have to leave to, the city manager to kind of sort out from an ordinance-specific perspective. So I'll just, I guess probably the easiest thing, and I'll probably learn a little bit here on how the best way to do this going forward is, I'll just kind of scroll down. As I mentioned, we've decided to call this, instead of the dark sky ordinance, call it the community lighting ordinance. I have the purpose in here. Section 102 is the purpose. Any questions, comments, concerns about section 102?
I guess, again, I would just like to see some, more of the environmental benefits spelled out beyond preserving Rehoboth's quality of life and reclaiming the night sky.
Why don't you let the night sky with the full moon go over it, and see how it lights up the town?
Yeah, no, it's beautiful.
It lights my whole yard up, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Mango by the lamp.
Okay, so is there, under purpose, I mean, is there, if we want to add like an E, is there something that anyone proposes adding an E?
Shoot, where did I see that?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I mean, I could work on something, Craig.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
happy to do that.
I've added a note here.
Yeah,
Okay,
just-
moving down to
I can't do it on the
definitions.
spot.
Any
Yeah, well.
questions on the definitions? As you're scrolling through those, the one that I would point out here is, a couple that I point out. One is K, which is lux, and the definition of lux, because that is how we're going to ultimately enforce this ordinance. And the enforcement is under M, light trespass. So light trespass defines how we'll enforce this, and it's based on lux. So if I read light trespass, it says, means a condition in which light emitted from a luminaire on one property is directed in such a manner that the light source is visible from the other property and exceeds 1 lux when measured at the property line of the owner of the light. Lux, if we come back up to lux and the definition here, lux is a unit of measurement of illumination. 1 lux is equal to 1 lumen per square foot, so that people understand what the definition of that is. And then the example we put in there, and there's a lot of examples that are online, 0.3 lux is compared to the illumination level of moonlight, so a full moon. So I hope that gives everyone kind of a good understanding of what that means from an example perspective. And what we're saying is if it exceeds 1 lux at the property line, then it would be in violation. And again, it's very important. I think many of us understand this from an enforcement perspective. It has to be, it's got to be measurable, and it's got to be clear.
And there's a lux meter.
Yeah, and as Ms. Conacy said, there is a lux meter that can be used to measure.
Craig, under dynamic lighting, I think the more we can use kind of plain English, I believe that also means like motion detected lighting. Is that accurate?
So, my understanding of dynamic lighting is what's in here, which is lights that, as it says, change in intensity or color during the use. And I think I don't want to say the same, but again, my understanding it is meant to be lights that, randomly or on a preset sequence, grow stronger, grow lighter, or change colors.
So not motion detected
Not
lights?
motion detectors.
Okay.
If I'm missing,
Some of
if
that-
anybody
Some of
wants
that
to,
soffit lighting that's colored, that can change colors, blue at one time, red at one, you know, some of that. Oh, there are some houses here that have it, have the colored lighting.
other questions on definitions?
I did have a
Yes,
question
Frances.
on the One Lux. I wondered where that came from, and I wondered if in our city with our setbacks being, I think it is 6 feet on the side yards and 6 feet again, so that if, you know, it was kind of almost like asking, like, what does dark sky versus friendly really look like? I wondered what does One Lux look like 6 feet away? If you're in the window if your bedroom window is on that side yard and that One Lux is shining at the property line.
I don't have a problem, I'd have a problem increasing it from here, just based on, you know, the Google education that I gave myself.
Oh,
on
no,
Lux.
I'm worried that it's too bright.
Okay.
Because
I-
if
so I-
0.3 lux is the full moon,
So I don't have a problem reducing it. My expectation is, or my thought is, and I guess it's my expectation is that when this gets to city administration, and ultimately the Board of Commissioners, this is where 90% of the focus is gonna be on this right here.
I
So I
just
don't
want, is there a basis for this One Lux? Where did this One Lux come from? I mean, did it come from the dark sky?
So the dark skies, most of their material suggests a level of 0.5,
0.5.
a half a lux. That is a very, very low level of light, very low. I know it says moonlight, but that's, moonlight is not 6 feet away from you, but
So then why wouldn't we have this be 0.5 lux in M?
I don't have a problem, you know, again, this is a committee here, so,
Yeah,
again,
we could
show
go
of
with
shaking
that.
heads, do we want to go with 0.5 versus 1? 0.5?
I don't have a
If that's,
frame of reference.
I mean, again, I'm with Mary, I don't have a frame of reference, but if we're moving towards dark sky compliant, and the dark sky program says 0.5,
0.5,
we should have 0.5.
okay.
Okay. Problem.
Other comments, questions on definitions? And I like to keep this as open as possible, provided we can, you know, just keep moving forward here, but there's not a lot of public in attendance, so if anyone has any comments, you know, just state your name, you know, state your name and make your comment. Well, ask to be recognized, if you could, so we don't have a free-for-all. State your name and let me know what your comment is, so. All right, any other
I mean,
questions?
I guess
on-
to Mary's point about motion detector or detected lighting, do we need a definition for that? Or I know it's somewhere else in the ordinance, it talks about motion detect.
Yeah, it speaks
just
to
bring-
how
so just
long
bring
it
it
can
up.
be,
How long it can be
Yeah,
on?
yeah.
5 minutes before it
Okay.
turns off.
I
right?
would think we probably do. Kathleen, your thoughts? Do we need a definition on motion detect?
I mean, I think it's, to me, it's self-explanatory. I'm just looking to see.
I know it's
that
somewhere else in
we
the ordinance.
Use the term.
The 5-minute turnoff.
Yeah, where is that?
It's 3, if you go to the very end, it's section 109, under effective dates, and then you keep going. There's a C after that. It's item number 3, outdoor light fixtures that are motion sensor equipped shall be programmed to extinguish not more than 5 minutes after activation. It's almost at the very end.
Yeah, I see it.
Yep.
So back to the question, do we
I don't
need a,
know.
do we need a definition for motion?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll leave it out for now. Yes.
Motion detector stuff, right? What about the helicopters that are flying over in the middle of the night with their floodlights looking for people that they can't find? And about the planes going over with all their lights, it messes up the stars, doesn't it?
Out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
enforcement.
definitions. Any other comments or questions on definitions?
No, no.
Yes, Collins.
Clear about, there's a lot of there's some definition there about wall-mounted lights versus covered lights. Some of the condos and hotels and the like light up the room, sheds a lot of light out because they got a lot of light for, say, their ground level, drive under parking. Is that covered by this or not?
So I believe that it is. I think between the enforcement of One Lux and us wanting them to use shielded lights and focus the lights downward, but I think back to the One Lux, yeah. I think that's a great question, a really good example. Comments? Kathleen, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that certainly hotels that, say, have a light in every balcony, those lights, which I would say probably typically right now are not full cutoff, within a year, those fixtures, as I'm reading this, I don't see an exception for it, or within 6 months, would have to be switched out to full cutoff. And that means that the lights would not be compliant if they were shining out. The light would have to be constructed, the fixture would have to shine the light down on the person's balcony, not out into the.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I think that would be our intent with all existing lights eventually would have to be switched out.
Other questions on definitions? Yes, Ron.
So I'm not.
Just if you
Ron
could state.
Bowman,
Yeah, thank you.
39 Emerald.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Lux. I just got familiar with lumens, but I'm most familiar in old school with wattage. So I think we're changing the 1 to a 0.5, which is great because it aligns with dark skies. I'm not sure how many of us in this room know exactly what the difference is. And safety and security always, that's the reason why we have outdoor lighting, the primary reason. We just want to, I'm just wondering what the difference is. And if it goes into an ordinance, we want to make sure that it's something that's acceptable. And I don't know if that can be measured or if that's something that
sounds
just
like it is.
the boardwalk will have different, dark sky compliant and dark sky friendly lights to compare. It would be nice to be able to see 1 lux versus 0.5 before it goes into an ordinance and then it's required. Just my
Jen Conisty, 42 Oak. I will just point out that Flagstaff, Arizona, which is, I don't know how many people here are familiar with it. It's a large place. It's also a jumping off point. It's a big tourist town for all of the canyons and all of that stuff out there. They were the first dark sky compliant city. And so what we're talking about here is already in existence in multiple places across the United States. This stuff was in the presentation, the thing with light trespass, with the things over and showing you the difference with a guy trying to rob a house and, anyway. So think about that, but this is not a new concept. It's new for us. Well, it's not really new for us. I'm not a young woman. I've been doing this a really long time. I don't have a lot of time left or energy to keep doing this again. And so, but you can measure. And I think the big thing is the same thing happened. I was on the city commission like 36 years ago, and we passed the first noise ordinance. And we worked with EPA and we found out there's a noise meter and it can measure and they're very effective. And Kathleen and I found out there is a luximeter. I think it's luximeter. It sounds like a spaceship or something, but it will measure what we're talking about. So the police will be able to enforce what we're talking about. These are not new concepts. They've been around a long time.
Yeah. So Kathleen, any,
Yeah, so lux versus lumens, I think the lumens is the ability of the light, the illumination that comes from the light onto the area to light up the area that it's intended to light up, like your front door, your front porch. The lux is the measure of the spillover, in a sense, that's typically measured at the property line. So how much is going beyond your property line onto your neighbor's property? So that's the main difference, and I'm not a scientist, I'm not a light engineer or anything, but from what I've been able to gather, you can measure light trespass either in so-called foot candles or lux, but lux seems to be the term that I see most often used in dark sky type ordinances, so that's why we went with that. And I did order on Amazon a little light meter, and it switches over where you can order it from either you can measure things, foot candles or lux, so it's. So-
okay, moving on to applicability.
Yeah.
Any questions on questions or comments on applicability?
I have one comment.
Yes.
Item number 2, all residential or commercial outdoor lighting fixtures that have been determined by city administrative staff to result in unacceptable levels of glare and light trespass onto adjacent or nearby residential properties following written complaints received by the city. I'm assuming embedded in that is that these are valid complaints, because it says above that it's determined that it's unacceptable levels, correct? We want to make sure that we just aren't, somebody writes a complaint and there's an automatic situation. I assume that this relates to the code enforcement folks needing to go and actually look at the lighting and determine whether a violation has occurred, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So do we need to change the language here? Are we comfortable with the language?
I'm okay. I just really had the question to make sure that it was clear that there would be a process, not just you submit the complaint and boom, the violation occurs.
And some of this, I'm without question, I'm jumping to the assumption there would be a process to validate the complaint.
Right. And it
First
says it
validate the
there.
complaint.
Yeah, it says has been determined by city staff to result in unacceptable levels.
Yeah, Craig, I would just make a simple thing, one little simple thing is I'd omit that word administrative.
Okay.
Just say the staff, because I'm envisioning building and licensing, but, coming out with their lux meter.
Yep. Sense.
Yeah, just city staff, they figure out who the proper one is to.
Other questions, comments on applicability? Public? Any questions, comments? Okay. We do address, there were some discussion earlier about dynamic lighting, so that is referenced in this section under at least under E4.
Yeah.
Yep.
Low intensity landscape lighting, which is dynamic, no more than 100 lumens.
When I reviewed this, I think I was looking for, do we have it covered that there is, uplighting is not allowed?
I think we do, but I think just based, and again,
Well, and what do we mean by uplighting? I mean, when I think about uplighting, I think of uplighting when people are uplighting trees.
Right.
Right.
Is that what we mean? Are you just talking about trees or other things, or?
Houses.
Yeah, I'd say
But are
I'm
we- are
thinking
we
in
trying to pro-
general.
Are we trying to prohibit uplighting of trees?
So
'Cause that's-
the only
lot of people
reference
have
that I,
that.
yeah, the only reference I can think of to uplighting in here is a flag.
Or a
So we
flag,
allow
or a
the
flagpole,
lighting of a
correct.
flag,
Yeah, that,
but I don't think there's any other reference to uplighting in here. I'm drawing a little bit from memory here, but I
Yeah.
don't think there is.
Well, and specifically, when there's an exemption for low-intensity landscape lighting directed downward, but there's not an exemption for low or high landscape lighting directed upward. So I would say by definition, then, the landscape lighting would have to ultimately comply with the standard that the light would be a fully shielded fixture. So you could not have an uplight. You really could not, because that's the,
You can't have a floodlight that the fire department has done with the parade to go up into the air, look at the trees.
That's exceptions.
Yeah, that
That's
would fall under
exceptions.
exceptions.
There's always exceptions.
So do we need to address the uplighting,
well, it gets,
landscape uplighting?
I think we
I
should
think we
be
should.
explicit whether we believe we should allow it or not, as opposed to leaving it subject to interpretation.
Can we look at dark skies on there and see about landscape lighting? Because I have this thing, you know, you could put across your whole front yard and you're just lighting up the neighborhood again. You know, you're lighting up your tree, but you're on a 50 by 100 lot, folks. You know, there's not much you can do on a 50 by 100 lot that doesn't impact your neighbors.
yeah, but a lot of the landscape companies are selling that.
Well,
You
then I
know.
won't be able to if this passes.
I have a light on my back door, and it goes into the backyard. When that light goes on, it lights up that whole backyard, including the trees.
But that's a motion detector.
That's not a motion detector, ma'am. That's just a light that's on by the door.
Okay.
So,
Lights up that whole yard.
yeah, so I would like to say, again, I don't have it right in front of me, but my remembrance is that uplighting is not allowed in the dark sky. I think I do have it here with me. I could look it up, but I'm almost positive that it really speaks to no uplighting. I mean, that's the point. No.
Getting birds or insects, all of the things.
That means you're gonna have to give the people that are doing the fires on the
So
roof.
do we,
That lights up the whole beach.
back to the committee, do we want to, I mean, I think Mary brings a very point, probably need to address it here.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we have to decide, yeah.
Mhm.
And if we're saying that we aren't going to allow any uplighting except for the American flag or the Delaware flag, or other exceptions as noted, then I do think that impacts a lot of people in the city who have done that landscape
Betcha.
tree lighting. You know, there's going to have to be a number of, again, it's about communication, understanding why that's no longer going to be acceptable.
Right,
And that might fit in with Elise writing that addition about the purpose of protecting the environment.
Yeah, because people have spent, I'm sure, thousands upon thousands of dollars beautifully lighting their landscaped gardens and trees and everything else, and this will be a big change for them.
And what's important, so I think for the purposes of right now, I think we need to kind of collectively decide what direction we want to go, okay? And that's what we'll put in here. But I would also say that, you know, again, as a commissioner, these are the types of things that will eventually work their way as public comment back to the Board of Commissioners. So I think we should probably also be considering it from the perspective, is there some sort of compromise or middle ground here that we may, and I'm not saying we should, I'm not saying we shouldn't, that we might be willing to consider, right? Uplighting of something as long as it's, you know, below a certain level. Because I think we could get a lot, you know, again, I think this, I'm glad this was brought up because I think this is something you could get a lot of people coming out and saying, I'm not ripping out my landscape.
That's
Right.
And then the city is in a battle for,
Right.
we're in a battle that
Right.
we can't And again, it comes back to enforcement. We're gonna get into this whole enforcement consideration or issue where we'll just never be able to enforce it, right?
Right.
Correct. Or, I mean, we are going to talk about a curfew time. I mean, it all turns off at a certain time. But to your, but, I
This
mean,
allows
having,
motion-
having,
yeah, it
having a
allows
low,
motion detector,
having a-
it can go on with a motion detector after curfew. And again, if I'm misstating here, right, you can have lights that go on after curfew, provided it's it's on motion detector lighting, turns off in 5 minutes. But again, I'm kind of I'm just kind of coming back.
I know.
If we're gonna be asking what could potentially be a lot of people to start ripping out landscape lighting, I can see that.
well, and I bring up the landscape companies too, because we could have them all marching in here too, talking about, you're taking,
Yes,
Well,
Collins.
well, I'm just saying.
I mean, this is gonna be largely complaint-driven for enforcement, presumably.
Right.
One way to address this might be to limit who can complain. I.e., an immediate neighbor can put in a complaint, but somebody walking down the street somebody can't go out one day and just walk around the city and be like, you, I'm gonna complain about 35 different people all at once. There might be a way to control this through that. If you limit the complaints to X distance from the property owner, who's X distance from the property.
And I think there's like language that,
Yeah, well, I suggested that we require written complaints, so it can't be just people, calling up with a list of addresses that have to be checked out. But I guess, it's hard to say that only your next door neighbor can complain, because if somebody is bothered by it, whether they're next door or across the street, or it's hard to define that.
I think so, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's either an ordinance or it's not.
Yeah.
Regardless of who does.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
Does the appropriate kind of complaint. I was just looking at dark sky here,
Oh,
and it does say one of the key characteristics of dark sky compliant lights is no uplight, no light escapes upwards into the sky.
okay.
But into the sky, as opposed to, I have a neighbor who just did uplights, but they're all against the walls of his house. Now, he would probably argue it's not going anywhere else, it's just on my walls, exterior walls. So, it could get us into a lot of arguments about definition and terminology.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, dark skies, basically, I'm reading here that it doesn't prohibit targeted, shielded, downward-facing illumination that is focused on architectural features or trees. So again, down the tree as opposed to up the tree is permitted. And then kind of the bottom line is gonna be whatever, whether it's up or down or, sideways, what is the lux meter registering at the property line? So how much of whatever is uplit or downlit is spilling into the private property of an adjacent neighbor? And I think that should be ultimately the guide to enforcement is, your neighbor has their trees uplit or downlit, but, we're registering on your property that there is no spillage. Okay. But if there is, and it's going through your windows into your bedrooms, then I think the average person, I would think, would be sensitive to that and not want to disturb their neighbors.
and Kathleen, I think you bring up a really good point, right? So Margaret just came, so if anybody's going to make a comment, just be recognized. You have to speak into the microphone because they can't hear no one can hear what you're saying. Kathleen, you bring a good point. So when I met with, one of the things I did since last meeting is I met with Chief Banks. okay, because I wanted to get his feedback on any concerns he would have with what we're discussing here. And one of the items that he just continued to reinforce with me is enforcement, okay? And I kind of discussed it. I didn't kind of discuss this earlier. I did, mention it earlier, that it has to be measurable and enforceable, clearly enforceable. And the reality is, the way we've got this written now, the enforcement is at the property line, 0.5 lux. If they're pointing the lights up in the trees, there's nothing that is enforceable there, unless I'm missing something here. So maybe this is what it is. I don't want to say is what it is, but we've got an ordinance here that says, right now it doesn't speak to uplighting. Okay, there's no reference to uplighting here. It's only a reference to downlighting, but it doesn't say you can't have uplighting. So even if we put uplighting in here, if it's not over 1 lux on your property, there's no enforcement mechanism, right? We would have to add an enforcement mechanism that is, if you have uplighting, it says specifically if there's uplighting, we can make you take it away. And I'm just not sure that that's enforceable or something that is going to be able to be enforced, right? And I think there's 2 parts to that, right? Right, measurable, easily enforceable, right? And again, I stress easily enforceable. If we start to get into areas that are not easily enforceable, so I'm open, right? My goal is to go through this, move it on to city administration. It doesn't mean that you can't come back with comments, because it's going to take them a bit to go through this, and we can, bring those comments back. But right now, and again, I'm talking it, from the perspective of the elected official, and things have to be enforceable. It's got to be measurable, and we have to be able, it's got to be easily enforceable or clearly enforceable. And I feel like we're having conversations about uplighting and the way we're enforcing this, which is 0.5 lux at your property line. If it's not 0.5 lux, there's nothing to enforce. So I'm not opposed to putting in no uplighting, but I think everyone's got to recognize if we put in no uplighting, there's probably no way to enforce it. Let me put it this way. If we're going to put up no uplighting in here, then we have to come up with a way to enforce no uplighting. Right? And I'm not opposed to either of these things. I'm looking to the committee to do this. What I'm saying, from an enforcement perspective, right now the enforcement is the 1 lux at the property line.
But the simple...
Hold on a second.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh. But the simple thing in not allowing uplighting is that it is simply, you cannot shine a light and direct it up to the sky.
So do we want to put...
If the chief, if somebody has some uplighting thing that is directed up, that's not allowed.
But do we, part of my consideration here is we already have a lot of residents that have landscape lighting that points up. So if we move forward with, an ordinance that requires them to take this out, we're going to get a lot of pushback, okay? So I'm anticipating and looking forward towards that potential pushback. If we're going to say uplighting, I heard someone said reference it can't go into the sky, so it's got to be pointing at something. So I'm not opposed to, I think, I don't want to say I'm not opposed, for opposed to anything. One consideration would be no uplighting that, points to the sky. It's got to point at something, okay? That would be one consideration. I'm not saying we should or we should not do it. Just understand the point, the consideration I'm trying to make is if we've got a lot of folks who have landscape lighting that's pointing up and we're going to ask them to take it out, there's going to be pushback.
One thought might be you could grandfather the folks who have it and try to enforce compliance around how bright that light is, and then say for any new construction that it would be not allowed. That might be one compromise.
Yep.
That would enable you to have, from a change management standpoint, better adoption of this.
I really like that idea.
Yeah, and I do think, actually, this is Kathleen here, that if you look at citywide requirements under section 105, the general rule is, except as provided in 2, which gives very limited exceptions, ultimately it says all outdoor lights fixtures shall be fully shielded. And if all of them have to be fully shielded, and by definition, an uplight is not fully shielded.
So it sounds like this might be one that we, in the interest of time, just sort of say, let's think about it some more and try to reach a conclusion. Because I think you either have to take a stand, to your point, and create an enforcement mechanism knowing that it is unlikely that that provision will not be met with significant resistance, or you have to come up with, or you decide not to address it at all, or you come up with something like a grandfathered approach.
So what I'd suggest, for the sake of moving beyond this specific topic, is, I think what Mary is recommending is, let's take this one away. Everyone takes it away. Think about some alternatives here. I don't want to say alternatives, but let's think about some options here. Send those to me, and then at the next meeting, we'll come back and revisit. What I will do is I will meet with, I'll meet with the city manager, I'll meet with the solicitor, and I'll talk to Corey and the chief, and let me get their feedback on this as well, okay? Again, I'm thinking enforcement here, right? It sounds like we might want to, one approach would be grandfathering, and going forward, there's a specific, back to the fully shielded, and they've got to be pointed down. Yes, Jan.
I would just like to comment, if I happen to live next door to somebody whose lights are shining up and into my yard and my house, and we have bird feeders everywhere, we try to leave our leaves and do all these environmentally correct things, grandfathering is not the way to go. Secondly, I will point out, I spent most of my career as a lobbyist, and you did two things when you had a bill to go through. Well, you did multiple things, but two of them were when you were drafting your bill. Either you drafted the best possible bill with everything you could possibly want in it, and then you had your backup plan, and your backup plan was what you're willing to compromise on and what you weren't. And I think what we're trying to do now is compromise before we've even gotten any feedback. If I live next, if the house next door to me is under construction, as it has been for almost 2 years, and the one across the street for a year before that, I don't know what kind of lights they're going to put, but if they put the lights they had on last time, now they're going to be 6 feet from my house, and they've shown in my house before. So I think there's some compromises you make, your backup plan, but if you have enough people who are willing to support you the way it's originally written, then you have your votes, and you don't need to compromise. But you always have a backup plan, but to me, the backup plan is what you go after you present. It's like you want to make compromises now rather than waiting to see who's our opposition, where are they coming from, what's their frame of reference, or do they have uplights around their whole yard and all their trees and everything, and count my votes. How many votes do I have? I only need 4 votes to get this through. It doesn't matter if I don't have 5. I only need 4.
So, Kathleen, I'm going to ask you specifically. So, one of the examples that Ms. Conacy just referenced was, landscape lighting that's pointing up that is going into her house. Again, we're going to be able to enforce that with the one lux at the property line.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter at this point. And again, I'm asking you because, again, in my mind, I think it's clear. But I'm asking for confirmation that it doesn't matter what type of light it is. If the light is greater than a lux, it's a violation.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So.
On the other hand, we don't enforce anything now, so
Let's move on.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah,
again, what I'd ask, I'm sorry, Kathleen.
Yeah, I do think it's important that, so that would result in, say that they had something in their backyard that was not, it was focused up, but was not directed in any way toward any adjacent house and didn't spill over. That light, if it was already installed, would be permanently grandfathered, but if it resulted in light trespass, then it would be treated as if it was newly installed and subject to the new rules.
For me, the light, for me, it's a very, and again, this is me, very solid line at light trespass, right? There can't be light trespass. So would this topic provide feedback? I'll consolidate it. I'll go ask some questions, as I had mentioned, and we'll revisit this at the next meeting. Okay, all right, so I think we were on applicability. Any other questions on applicability? City-wide requirements?
I have one.
Yes,
Actually, I have a few.
okay,
The first one is about lighting the flag.
okay.
If you have a 50 by 100 lot, and I just looked up the regulations regarding flag lighting, the flag must be fully illuminated, without shadows. I wondered, for purposes of lighting of the flag, you could have some lighting be visible, like my flag is in the front of my property. I don't know how you would have that so that that wasn't visible while at the same time it's fully illuminating the flag. So I'm just curious as to whether you can actually comply with that and not have it be seen from the property line. It's kind of a technical question. But I firmly support that people should be able to light the American and the Delaware flags. So that's item number C.
So Mary, I think that, when I think about that, I think that sort of you can do that because what you see is a lot of places where you have the illumination of the flags, there will be like shrubs around at the base, and not even tall shrubs, just some planting materials that actually are, kind of high enough that they actually, so you don't get the glare from that light that's illuminating
I
the
see.
flag.
That's a good solution. I'm just reading here. The flag must be illuminated when flown at night. Use a dedicated light source or sufficient ambient light to make the flag clearly visible and recognizable. The light should be bright enough and positioned to cover the entire flag without harsh shadows or glare, to your point. Light should be directed at the flag, not shining into the sky or away from it. And of course, this is a voluntary code, but it is a respect thing for the flag, so perhaps it's fine as is.
Should we expand this, C?
I guess it's a question of if somebody is lighting their flag and yet their lighting is above the limit and creates a light trespass, how do you deal with that from an enforcement standpoint?
And this may be a little vague. It says, so that the light source is not visible from the property line.
Yeah,
So maybe it's fine as is.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it just says, provided that these luminaires, or pointing at the flag, shall be shielded as necessary so the light source is not visible from the property line. I think that creates the proper balance.
And you think that uplighting of that flag would still be okay because it's an exception as written here?
As long as the light source isn't visible from the property line, yes.
Okay.
Or you had some others?
I had, yes, I had, the second one was limitations on outdoor lighting include item number 1, lighting around the perimeter of a site is prohibited. And again, I'm thinking about the 50 by 100 lot, right? A small lot where you have a pathway around your property, maybe to go back to the garbage or what have you. You could easily have path lighting around the perimeter and it just says you can't have that. So I guess maybe it's the definition of around the perimeter is a question that I would have about it.
So we have the exception for landscape lighting pointed downwards, less than 300 lumens. And then we have this lighting around the perimeter of the site is prohibited. Do those conflict?
That's my question, yeah.
Well, and Craig, we have the rule, the ordinance that we're proposing about the lux at the property line. I mean, for me, it all comes back to that. If that's going to be the direction we go, and if this lighting around the perimeter doesn't violate that, whether we stay at 1 lux or 0.5 lux, then it seems like it should be acceptable. If it violates that, then it violates the rule.
So do we need number 1 at all?
That's where I was going, Mary. Do we need 1 or 2?
Yeah, I mean, if we already have a governing
And I was.
regulation that applies across the
We
board,
may not need all of C.
yeah.
May just be, it just becomes more confusing, keeping C.
I find it confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I suggest we take it out.
Take it out.
okay.
Mary, you had another comment on this section?
That's it.
Other questions, comments on 105 citywide requirements? Okay. Moving on to 106 streetlights.
Oh, 1 second, I missed something.
Yes.
Lighting curfew, 10 PM. That felt a little early.
Thoughts? Because this, I've had more than a few conversations about what this time should be. So.
Oh, you have?
And you shouldn't interpret that as, I have a strong opinion either way, other than clearly this is something that people have an opinion about, so.
Yeah, the reason that I say it felt a little early is that I often will walk late at night, and it just it made me feel a little uneasy from a safety standpoint.
Can I just comment? We talked, Kathleen and Craig and I talked about this too. And, when we go out, we put our front porch light on, which is enclosed in a front porch. And, I don't always come home at 10 o'clock at night, or I leave it on for, when one of our kids is visiting, and they certainly don't come home at 10 o'clock at night. So your front porch light is on. It's not shining anywhere else but on the steps, to go up so you don't fall down and hurt yourself. So we went back and forth about this too. What time was the right time? Now, when we take our trash out, we have a motion detector that goes on. It only shines down. It has a cover across the top, and it stays on. I have to time it now to see how long it stays on. I don't know actually how long it stays on, but some people have motion detectors when they go back and forth inside their house, like lighting pathways and stuff like that. So I think we were flexible about the time, but, if you're working the 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. shift at a local restaurant, 10 o'clock may seem very late to you, so.
Thoughts? Dick?
Yeah, the statement also states that except for lighting at building entrances at midnight. So that may get at the concern here of going out for a later night walk or being way past 10, that front door light, that porch light.
Yeah, what, of the committee members, is there a thought? Do you want to stay with 10? Do you want to move it later? If we move it later?
I will just weigh in and say that I think of children, trying to get children to sleep in the summertime. And, it's hard getting them to sleep at 9 o'clock while it's still light, but that's when you start trying. And then I will also add, elderly people tend to like to go to bed at 10-ish.
Yes, that would be me. I was thinking a little bit about this from the perspective of, in the summer when the commercial area closes down, right? It's pretty much clearing out by 10 o'clock, okay? So I don't think 12 midnight is the right time. I would say 11 would be the latest, but maybe even you'd make the argument that 10 is correct, but 10:30 would be the latest. So I don't know that I have I guess what I'm saying is I don't have I'm trying to, in my mind, is there a logical time here? And it's certainly not 12.
And to me, again, it's enforcement.
Yeah.
Are the police going to be patrolling the streets, making sure all the lights are turned off at 10 o'clock?
Yeah, it's they don't have the capacity to do that in the summer. So maybe the time is 10, and
I think 11 is better, but that's my frame of reference is my friends, my family, we're a late night group. We're out at the boardwalk and coming home, and I'm walking home by myself late at night, and I would feel safer with more lighting rather than less. But I don't have children. I'm not elderly yet, so I don't have the same concerns. And I think it is something we have to balance all of the needs of the community, so.
I think
Thoughts?
especially, I thought of it too, especially in the summertime, when everybody's out and about.
11.
And longer.
Do we want to say, is everyone comfortable with 11?
No.
Hold on a second. Is everyone comfortable with 11?
Could you consider 11 in season and have it be, I don't want to introduce too much complexity, but just like we're now kind of coordinating on other things that are similar, you could have an in-season and then you could have an off-season.
I have a strong preference, just based on these recent conversations about in-season and out-of-season, is we just stick with one time. So I think, and I would,
I like
so there's just that point in itself, but living here full-time, the reality is my street is really dark in the wintertime, so I'm not concerned about lights being left on late in the wintertime, so.
I mean, I like the compromise of 11.
Okay. I see some shaking of heads, yes, maybe,
Good.
okay. Okay, go ahead.
Wintertime, 11 o'clock sounds good, but you still got your bars open. As long as people are walking those streets, they can get hurt because the lights are gonna be out, and we can't see what's going on. I mean, you can F this and F that in the middle of the
But
night.
the street lights are still on.
It's only,
We're just
yeah.
talking about
Residential
residential. We're talking about residential.
Okay, moving along. Mary, was that your last comment on that section?
No,
Okay.
it's not, unfortunately. Item F, seasonal lighting only from October 1 to January 15. We have other holidays such as the 4th of July, and I wanted to just raise whether we needed that to be more so limited.
Mary, we went back and forth on this too, because some of them start in November, and we talked about Halloween lighting, so that's why we put October 1st. But 4th of July, it's probably light until, what, midnight practically. So we didn't really address that. We addressed the kind of a holiday where people put out like Christmas lights and the new trend is Halloween lights and stuff. So that was our thinking on this. And that's why we went to October 1st instead of like some ordinances have, mid-November, just to cover the Halloween people.
Thoughts?
Yeah,
I don't feel strongly.
yeah, I'm fine with October 1 to January 15th.
I think this is another one that probably falls into a gray area
Yeah.
when it comes to enforcement. My experience, which is fairly limited, is that, you know, seasonal lights, right? It's the Christmas lights, which are where you have a lot of them. People are pretty good about taking them down by the 15th. So even though we have this in here,
Yeah.
whether we even really need to have it or not, is probably questionable. So, all right, Mary, anything else on that section? Okay.
Thankfully, no.
Yep. 106 streetlights. Any comments, questions on 106 streetlights?
No, I think we talked enough about it.
Okay. Recreation and athletic fields.
One comment about parking lots adjacent to recreation and athletic fields. I wasn't sure if that was addressed anywhere else. Because I think about like Rehoboth Elementary, and that's big lighting.
No, it's not actually.
It's not? Oh, they changed it?
No, excuse me. They didn't change it, but the Planning Commission, back when they built the new school, a member of ours was an expert in lighting based on legal cases he'd been involved with. And so they're limited to Kelvin, and I believe they have to turn them off at 8 o'clock at night. I'm not 100% sure right now, because it's been a long time since that passed. But we limited the Kelvin that they could use. I don't think we knew about lux. And so the lights.
That's the color temperature, though. Yeah.
Right. So what we wanted to do was to ensure that the lights at Rehoboth Elementary did not impact the people all along whatever street that is. And they don't. We've not ever had, there's been no complaints about that. And so there was an effort made back when the approval was made for the school to ensure that the lights went off at appropriate time and that they were low enough so that it didn't impact the neighbors there. And that's thank you to, a friend.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of what other recreational facilities we had that were lit, and then it just dawned on me, what about Deauville Beach? Deauville Beach and the parking lot.
Parking lot.
I know we don't, but
Should we
is
at
there
least,
anything we can do about it? And they also have, I'm just letting everyone know, that they have a security light on that shack on Park Avenue that's on 24/7.
All right, I'm going to take a note on Deauville Beach. One, I'll find out,
And
is
just
there anything
parking.
we can do?
The
Right?
old snack shack. Yeah, there's a security light that shines down on the path.
I wonder if they would even say it's not in the city of Rehoboth Beach since it's owned by the state. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's all, yeah.
And I will follow up on this, the elementary school parking lot lights. Okay.
I think just in that section or somewhere, we should address parking lots.
I guess, yeah, I'm thinking about the parking lot by Grove Park. I mean, are there any others that we're even
Not yet.
thinking about?
Municipal building. There's
Oh,
one
yeah,
right out
municipal
here.
building.
Senior
Yeah.
center.
Senior center.
Oh, yeah, the new,
I think it's just, yeah. Okay, just moving along, conflicts with other laws, effective dates. So we'd mentioned earlier, 30 days after enactment, okay, which is standard for the city. Existing lighting, as I mentioned earlier, not later than December 31st, 2026. So think about those couple of things, right? And section C, any questions on section C? We do have, an extension in here, so we give the Director of Building and Licensing, people can appeal, and again, just to be very clear, when we're talking about an extension, you need to be compliant by December 30, is currently in the ordinance, you have to be compliant by December 31st, 2026. We do allow for an extension. You would appeal to the Director of Building and Licensing, and then he could provide that extension. In terms of Section C, any questions on Section C? Okay, so what I will do is feedback, again, as in the last time, provide your comments back, particularly on things we talked about. I'm going to update this, okay? And when I get the feedback, I'll incorporate that. As I mentioned, I will, with some of these things we talked about, I will go back and as appropriate, talk to the, city staff. We good for now on community lighting? Okay. Great discussion. I really appreciate everyone's input. What I'd like to do is I'm going to very quickly talk about artificial turf, and then I want to spend the last 15 minutes, so we get out of here by noon, talking about future agenda items, okay? Okay, so the first thing is I've gotten some questions. Why is artificial turf on the agenda? So when I met with the city manager to review the future agenda items list that we had created from our last meeting, pervious surfaces was on there. He brought up that they were already drafting an artificial turf ordinance. So Corey was already drafting an artificial turf ordinance. He suggested that the Environmental Advisory Committee take that up. That's how that ended up on the agenda. So from time to time, and I use that loosely, it is my expectation, kind of my hope, the city will come to us with us being the Environmental Advisory Committee and want us to take up items. So there will be, from time to time, things will just show up on the agenda. Understand if something shows up on the agenda, it's more than likely it's come from the city for us to look at, okay? So that's how artificial turf got on here. My plan with artificial turf, this ordinance, so a couple of things. Specifically artificial turf, at the next meeting, I'll invite Corey to come in and talk about his ordinance, talk about what he's thinking, okay? As far as the artificial turf for me, which falls under really the broader category of pervious surfaces, which for me, now I'm starting to work into future agenda items, falls into what the broader category is of lakes management, which I want to rename to something else because, yes, we want to make sure we're taking care of our lakes. We have clean lakes. We're not filling our lakes with silt and sediment and other toxins or whatever it may be. That's not where it ends. It ends up on the beach. So really what we're doing with lakes management is not just about taking care of the lakes, and I don't want to minimize the importance of doing that, is what ends up in those lakes ultimately ends up on our beach. So ultimately here it is having clean beaches, right? We know we all are here in the summertime. I don't know the last time a beach was closed, but we do periodically see a sign. And our goal as one of our goals as an environmental advisory committee is that, we make sure we never see those signs again. So when we talk about lakes management and water management, it starts all the way proverbially upstream, right? The rain comes down. We want that rain to be absorbed. We want to focus on, again, there's a lot of things to focus on, but I think you appreciate what I'm saying. So if we have opportunities, artificial turf, pervious surfaces, so that rainwater is absorbed in the ground rather than flowing into our rainwater collection system, ending up either in Lake Girard, Silver Lake, or in the middle of town, ending up, right on Rehoboth Beach, then we need to be focusing on that. To some extension, this is probably some subset or falls within stormwater water management. That's fine, but to me, that's where artificial turf falls. So for the sake of time, I wanted to leave it at that. Anybody have any questions on artificial turf?
Request.
Yes.
When Corey comes to present, could he please give us some data about the nature of the complaints or questions he's receiving from the community? In other words, is this a high volume situation where he's getting a lot of inquiries? Is it one or two people? And the nature of what he's hearing?
I will ask him to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions on artificial turf? Give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead, Francis.
Craig, I would like to volunteer from a chemistry perspective as part of Corey's, maybe after Corey, but I could present on, I did a lot of work, if you will. I did a lot of research on what artificial turf is made of, et cetera, and I could give a bit of a organic chemistry, no, not really, just a science, I'd like to give a science perspective of what it is.
That would be great. Okay, so we'll put you on the agenda for our next meeting along with Corey. Okay, now sharing the future agenda items list that was attached to the agenda. I talked about lakes management. So what I did, so a couple of things. One is, if something was left off the list, it was not intentional. Okay, was my best efforts to be a scribe at the last meeting. I did consolidate some things that I thought were the similar or same. So if something's not on here, it was not intentionally left off. It was left off by mistake. So that would be the first thing. So we'll cover those in a second. What I also did is I broke these into 3 categories: general, tree-related, and for educational items, and then no city administration support at this time. So as I mentioned, I went and spoke with city administration, and for one of a number of reasons, these items that I listed at the bottom were not priority, either not a priority for them at this time, or they just weren't interested in at this time. That should not be interpreted as we should not pursue it. It's just that everyone needs to understand, if we're going to pursue it, we pursue it. Just appreciate that, they may have reasons, and if we decide to pursue these things, I will find out the details of their concerns around the particular item. So as we pursue it, we know there are some things that we'll probably have to address. Okay, so just because it's in this category doesn't mean I'm not interested in pursuing it. We should not pursue it. You just need to understand there's going to be some concerns out there that are going to come from the city that we're going to have to address. And it could be anything. It could be something from building and licensing. It could be something from public safety, the police department. So we just want to understand those things. It's just going in, proverbial eyes wide open. Okay. When I look at this, I mentioned it with lakes management. One of the things that I believe here with lakes management, one, we got to rename it. So maybe it's like Beautiful Oceans, or some looking for feedback. We don't have to decide that today. But what I'm looking for is someone or some people to help not only with lakes management, but I've also broken out tree related. To me, these are I'm going to steal Mary Good's term. These are kind of more holistic items. And below those, there are a bunch of sub-items that we should attack. And I think it's important, you've heard me say this before, I think we should break things into manageable chunks so that we can move stuff along and have wins and have success. So what I'd ask is for lakes management and for tree related is if some people would volunteer. I want to be involved in the lakes management. I don't need to be involved in tree, but I'd ask if a couple of the committee members, a few of the committee members could go off, okay, here's our holistic, and I think it can be more than tree, it can be vegetation, right? Here's our holistic tree plan. These are the things that we want to accomplish, and then bring those back at the next meeting. I'd ask you to identify them, prioritize them, bring them back to the next meeting, and then we can discuss the items that we're going to go after in the sequence we'll go after. Want to do the same thing with the lakes management. So I'll participate in the lakes management. So why don't we start with tree related? Who's willing to work on tree related stuff?
I think you're looking at us.
Okay, I'm looking at the 2 of you. Anyone else interested in working on tree related stuff?
I will help.
Okay,
Thank you, Mary.
perfect. Lakes management. Francis can help me with lakes management. Okay. Yeah. I'm not pushing Kathleen in one direction or another, because one of the things that I found invaluable about Kathleen over the last month is that she's great. She really understands how to write ordinances. So as I said earlier, I think to the extent that we can write at least create that first good draft of the ordinance.
I certainly don't have any substantive knowledge of lakes management in terms of the subject matter, but I'd be happy to lend my assistance to the committee with any, legal or quasi-legal drafting.
Okay, great. Yes, Dick.
And Craig, let me just add, I'm not going to volunteer for one or the other because I'm going to be gone for the next 2 months, and so that'd be unfair to the others. But I would strongly suggest on the lakes management, or whatever terms get used to describe that area, that, again, like at the last meeting, that there's some conference with SOLA 3. So we're not duplicating things that they're doing, or we're not doing something that they have already done, but we can take advantage of what they're doing. And they should be well aware of what we are doing so that we can benefit each other.
Perfect, great point. Yes, Jan?
I'll just note that Mary Peck is on the board of SOLA, as am I. And so you have, she's not here, but my guess is she'll volunteer.
Yeah, so-
Yeah, that would be great. Let's volunteer.
Mary
yeah, yeah, we can volunteer her.
Okay, perfect.
And can I just say something about trees? I forwarded an email to some of you, including Craig. Tuesday, somebody finished desecrating a lot on Henlopen Avenue that used to belong to Guy Martin. It's 85 and 87, I think. There were 4 magnificent oak trees, huge, across the front of the property. And they were cut off, and then about 12 feet remained, and on Tuesday, the last 12 feet was taken out. When I wrote to the city and I asked why, it was because they couldn't tell me whether it was on city property or on the property of now Touchstone. The person that bought the second lot, that was Guy Martin's also, they've already had a basement in. They have not cut down trees. And I CC'd you on Corey's response to me and on my response, and I CC'd Elise because I know Elise well, and I know her feeling about trees. If we allow that to happen, there is something majorly wrong. They were right. If they weren't on city property, they were right at the edge of between city and private property. If we have a tree ordinance that allows a shifting of setbacks to save a tree, then how do we allow these 4 magnificent oaks? They've probably been there 100 years, you think, Elise? They were huge, huge. Well, and Andrea knows those trees. You know which ones I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was just obscene. And because I walk over there, and then I ran into Sam Cooper and Lorraine, and we went over on Monday night to show them to Lorraine because she hadn't seen it, because Sam was appalled. And we were all appalled. There's something wrong with our tree ordinance that allows that to happen. There is no way that all 4 needed to come down to get into the lot. It's much wider than 50 feet. It's probably 75 because it's not as deep, because you know how they are on Henlopen Avenue, Dick. They're not quite as deep. Anyway, I just hope that you look at that. And I had not had a response from Corey, and I didn't bring my phone with me, which now I know how students feel when they're without their phone. It's pretty good because you focus.
Well, Corey's response was, it's so difficult to determine lots on
Excuse
that,
me?
on
It's
that
not
part of
difficult to
Henlopen.
determine
I mean, it
what's
was
a
kind
city
of an
property.
unacceptable response.
It was an
really.
unacceptable response in every way, shape, and form. And Corey is usually a really good person on top of things. So I just think
doesn't focus on
he's swamped
trees.
with stuff. But I do hope that this committee
remember.
will ensure that these old-growth trees don't just get ripped out. I'm
Well,
not a tree
yeah.
hugger, but my God.
Check out Kent Street. There
I
have
know.
been.
Did you see the sign there?
Yeah.
I took a picture of the sign.
Yeah, there have been a large number of historic 100-year-old pines taken down just in the last couple of weeks, including one that was a habitual nest of eagles, or a perch for eagles.
Oh, God.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the city does nothing on this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I just wonder, how this is happening. I
Was
don't,
that tree on Columbia? The
No,
eagle
it's
one?
on Kent.
It is on where?
Kent
It's on
Street,
Kent, okay.
between 3rd and 4th.
Okay.
Sounds like perhaps this is something we should more urgently
Yeah.
try
yeah.
to get some insight about.
I'll follow up on that independently, but I'd ask you with what you're going to propose to incorporate that. What other items?
Know what we can do.
Okay, so if we go back to the list, first question, anything not on, is there anything that needs to be that I missed or that needs to be added?
I mean, major things are here.
Okay. And I'd say that would be outside of lakes management and outside of trees.
These are,
So anything kind of in the general bucket?
I mean, I think in terms of education about recycling, I was just disappointed to read about the city's, our rate of recycling, and it's pretty poor overall. So it seems like that might be a good education piece to work on at some point. I don't think it's as urgent as trees getting cut down.
I don't know what we're going to do about that, but you have vegetation remediation. And while we were on the tree committee, and Dick was on the committee at the time, we did try an education campaign about the dangers of ivy. And we have ivy growing everywhere in this town, on public and private space. I would just emphasize ivy
Okay.
as an invasive plant
Okay.
and need to get rid of it.
and actually, we have some things that we could do, and we need to work around, that we had some problems. For example, we have material, that educational material, and we'd like to just walk around, and when we see ivy, just drop off that educational material. We were told we can't. And I guess I'd like to look into that, because I'm now in DC working with the Casey trees on ivy. And we have door hangers that we're putting on properties. So I'd like to know whether we could do that here.
Okay. I will ask, but I would say put that on your, when you
Yeah,
come
we'll
back
put-
with
we'll put it
trees.
on.
And
Yeah, we'll put it on.
Andrea and Elise and Mary, when I use the term trees, but to me, it's more than trees.
Yes.
Okay, so, okay. Dick, I think you were going to,
Yeah, just a general comment. Climate change planning kind of shows up everywhere. It's in the comprehensive development plan in several places. It is shown up here. And so just to make a note that over the last week or so, I've seen references from DENREC that they are working on a plan. They've put out some general information very recently. It's not very specific, but it looks like that's going to move ahead. And so we should be paying close attention to what the state is doing and seeing how we can benefit from that and/or maybe be a part of that.
okay. Any other items to add to this? What I'm going to suggest is, I think we've got a pretty full agenda for our next meeting between wrapping up community lighting, artificial turf, getting presentations or feedback on trees, lakes management. So I'm not going to ask the commissioners to approve anything else for us to talk about at this time. At the next meeting, we'll define what we want to do next. Okay, is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, all right.
And the next meeting
Next
is
meeting
on
is-
February 25th,
It
correct?
should be on the agenda.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's-
just
yeah,
making
it's
sure.
February, yeah.
Yep.
Everybody knows. Okay.
Any other questions or comments
I
from?
have a question.
Yep.
Does anybody know, I have 2 cans of acorns and walnuts that I have in a trash can.
Oh,
If
I just,
if any of you can use them, come get them, take them all off the property. I mean, maybe a field or something can use them.
I'll have to admit, I'll admit in front of everyone, I just dump all of mine in Central Park
That's,
and feed the deer over there.
yeah.
Okay.
Are they sprouted? Are they sprouted?
There are some that are sprouted that got wet, but I've had some little seedlings grow underneath the trees, but there's too many acorns to have all these trees in my yard.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
We-
no,
We
I-
know where you are.
Why
right.
some of the trees are dying.
Yeah, die, cut.
Unless there's anything else from the commissioners, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, great. Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well.
I'll be in touch.